Deputies Thomas Pringle and Catherine Murphy. Deputy Boyd Barrett is 10 minutes and the other two deputies 5 minutes each.
Thanks. Count Corla. I have to say Deputy Buttimer deserves 10 out of 10 for brass neck and loyalty to the party line when it comes to trying to put a positive spin on what is frankly a scandal and is part of the looting of public resources. There's no other word for it. And saying that, well, actually, most of Bord Gáis is going to stay in public ownership, when what this bill is about giving over public resources into private hands and starting a process of picking apart Bord Gáis to try and claim, well, it's really about that we've saved part of Bord Gáis. No, what this bill is about selling a very profitable part of Bord Gáis and beginning the process of what will be inevitably the full-scale privatisation of Bord Gáis. Let me just put an elementary point on that to sort of bear that out, is if we sell off the profitable parts of Bord Gáis, the pressure will become all the greater to ultimately privatise the less profitable parts. That's, basic arithmetic. Bord Gáis Energy produced 79 million in profits last year, this has been said, has year on year given tens of millions in dividends directly to the state. How you could possibly construe a case that it is good for us to give away a profitable asset when the country is beggared and when it is actually putting money year on year into government coffers is beyond belief. But not only that, but if the profitable bit is gone, the subsidy that those profits would give to the other parts to maintain the infrastructure that will be retained in state ownership will be gone. And it will be more costly for the state to maintain the network infrastructure, and eventually the pressure will come on to privatise that as well. And that's always the way it works. It always works like that. You begin by privatising a part, the profitable part, you cherry-pick it, and then you end up having to privatise the rest. And that has been the experience everywhere in the world. There is no counter-example. Once privatisation starts, it's a slippery slope and it continues. And of course, there's other bits of Bord Gáis that are being privatised by stealth in what is really an unbelievable sleight of hand and, frankly, a heist being facilitated by this government. The recent award of the contracts to put in water meters to the company Sierra, owned by Dennis O'Brien, is a scandal, when that company had €110 million of debt written down by Anglo-Irish Bank, i.e. by us. People who are in mortgage distress, they can't get a write-down on their debt, but one of the richest men in the country can get €110 million written off by Anglo-Irish Bank, who at the time was headed up by Alan Dukes, former Fine Gael minister, and now, lo and behold, he gets the contract for putting in water meters, which he's going to make a pretty penny out of. I mean, it is a startling repeat, frankly, of what happened with the selling off of the second mobile phone licence. It's just a scandal. We're being robbed, and the government is facilitating this robbery. And who will suffer? Well, the consumers will definitely suffer. It's already, as it's been geared up for privatisation, we've had year-on-year price increases, and the latest one is going to add €20 a year to the average household bill. And how is that going to be a stimulus for the economy? Might the ministers explain? When households who already can't pay their bills have another €20 put on their annual gas bill, well, isn't that going to be depressing for the economy? Of course it is. And what's the damage going to be done to small and medium enterprise that is clinging on for dear life as prices are jacked up by private companies who have their captive market handed to them courtesy of this government? It's an absolute scandal. And I would like to comment just how this connects with the so-called good news figures coming out from the CSO suggesting Ireland is coming out of recession. What a load of nonsense. I just went to the briefing of the CSO, and you look carefully at what's happening, and what you see is the domestic economy is continuing to flatline, investment is down, GNP is down, but the area that is growing is the multinational sector, and at the same time that it is growing, a massive increase in the outflow of profits from those multinationals, which are not being taxed virtually at all. We are being sucked dry by these multinationals as the domestic economy goes down the toilet. And what you are proposing to do with this bill is not just facilitate the multinationals in the areas of financial services and pharmaceuticals and computers and IT. Now you're going to give them our natural resources, which could be used to the benefit of the people, which could be used to actually generate desperately needed employment. You're going to hand over those resources to the same multinationals to suck out the profits from our resources. You couldn't make it up. It's a scandal. And what will happen to the workers? The same that's happened in all the places which have been privatised. They'll lose their jobs, their pay and conditions will be attacked. How will that help the domestic economy? It won't. It will do the same damage it has done in every other case where there has been privatisation. It is an absolute unmitigated scandal. I mean, it's just a pity that there isn't the same public sort of sense of urgency and attachment to our gas resources as there was to our forests, which we did stop you from selling because we were able to mobilise big public opposition to it. Sadly, the public, this is going under the radar for most of the public, and they don't understand what's at stake, although I certainly hope that the workers in Bord Gáis will fight this with every fibre in their being. Because their livelihoods, their jobs are at stake, and a vital natural resource. And of course, it's not just gas. I mean, that's what's even worse. Bord Gáis Energy has massive wind portfolio assets. I mean, I used to joke years ago at public meetings that if the corporate vultures have their way, eventually they'll make you pay for fresh air. And that's actually what's going to start happening. Because wind, air, is a massive resource in this country which could be used to develop energy and to create thousands of jobs. And Bord Gáis wind assets are now going to be handed over to private interests so they can profit from our resources rather than us. Again, it's an absolute scandal. It's a heist, it's a robbery, and it should be opposed and should be resisted. And when the government says, what's the alternative? The alternative is very simple. Keep a profitable asset in state hands and invest in the development and expansion of that asset. In wind energy, in our gas resources and so on. Use those profits to actually invest in the real economy to create jobs. How you cannot see that is beyond me. Or maybe you do see it, you know what you're doing, and it's just about facilitating your mates in the private sector. And I'll just say a final word about the Labour Party. I mean, I sort of expect this because of the ideological commitment of Fine Gael to privatisation. But for Labour deputies to get up here and defend the privatisation of state resources is absolutely shocking. And it is particularly shocking that the senior minister in the department that is doing this is somebody who wrote pamphlets in the 1970s when he was part of the Resources Protection Campaign, warning against the privatisation of our resources, and actually led popular campaigns and protests against the sell-off of our natural resources. And now that same minister is the one who is facilitating the asset stripping of our vital resources when we need them most. How the worm turns.
Prepare to conclude, Deputy.